We're going to get started right away. We are going to take the summer off, July and August, and then we'll be returning in September. So stay tuned about what our next topic is. That's not happening until the fall. Today, you're joining us to talk about the hidden growth strategy, and I'm very excited to share this information with you. I had an opportunity to um, to certify in this unreasonable hospitality, and that's what we're sharing with you today. So if you're a business leader in a position where you help customers, whether they be internally or externally, then this will be a great opportunity for you to learn with me. I am going to share my screen and we're going to get rolling right away. Okay, let me move this part over. All right, so hidden growth strategy. This is based on a book, so if you want to learn more, you're going to have that opportunity to do so. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality, and it is also something that you can certify with through the Flight Plan program. I'm going to start with a story. So the other day, I had the opportunity to have a couple business conversations with some prospects that could be clients. And over the course of those conversations, I referred some other business affiliates that are friends of mine that I thought might be a better fit for what was going on with the businesses. And of course, with a couple of those happening, I got a little upset because I'm like, oh my goodness, every time I go to a sales meeting, I end up getting work for other people. How am I going to grow this brand new business? And then I talked to a couple friends, and their response to me was, well, maybe, Jamie, you shouldn't be mentioning the other businesses, and instead you should just try to sell. And what they were saying made a lot of sense from a traditional and a revenue perspective. But right away, I didn't like that idea. And my initial response was, well, if that's what's going to take to build the business, I'm going to have to hire a salesperson pretty fast because I am not the type of person who can go into a conversation and have a pure sales conversation instead of having a business conversation. So if that's what it takes, it's not going to be me doing those conversations. And then, funny enough, a little bit later, someone liked or commented on this LinkedIn post that I'm sharing here. And I realized, oh my goodness, before launching W, I had set 3 level ups. Trust yourself, give with full-hearted confidence, and lean into your galvanizing and discernment genius. And at that moment, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I must be psychic. Because if these are the level ups I'm focusing on, and these are the priorities, I should trust myself that a business conversation is the right approach, that giving with full-hearted confidence is the right thing to do, and of course, leaning into those geniuses that happen during business conversations. So it turns out I'm a psychic, and I didn't even know it because I had set up goals that were exactly what I needed to hear when I was frustrated and unsure about my approach. That example of those business conversations when you're giving is an example of a hidden growth strategy. And while that only happened like a month or two ago, and I can't say for sure that it all comes back and that I'm going to grow accordingly, I am confident in this methodology and this strategy, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. So as mentioned, Unreasonable Hospitality is something that we are certified for here at W. We don't directly sell unreasonable hospitality projects or consulting or advisory. Not that we couldn't, but that's certainly not our target. However, in everything we do, from that business conversation I just described to all the work we work with clients and candidates, it's top of mind because our North Star is intentional connection, and unreasonable hospitality is directly tied to connection. We all have customers. How do you exceed their expectations? Who could those customers be? And as I talk to you today, when I use the word customers, please interchange it with what actually matters to you and the role that you have. Whether it's your internal customers, maybe you're an accounting department and you're serving operations. Maybe you're a marketing department and you're serving sales. Maybe it's the opposite and you're a sales department working under marketing. It could be your employees for those of you that are leaders. It could be the leaders that you report to for those of you that are employees. Could be the community, investors, vendors, board of directors, stakeholders, candidates like us in recruiting, or of course, just general customers. And for most of you, you have more than one of these customers. So please interchange the words I use with the customer that's top of mind to you. While every role has customers, most people haven't always thought about it that way. So what I want you to do today is challenge your mindset and your approach and think about those stakeholders we just talked about as customers. We're going to talk about the problem with good enough. And I get it because we're very busy. And sometimes just hitting the table stakes and the good enough can feel like a lot of work and a lot of time on its own. So what is it that makes that a problem? That's part of what our discussion is today. Part of it is that if you're only doing good enough, eventually someone's going to come along. They're going to build a better brand. They're going to have a better product. They're going to be smarter if you're that internal person serving customers. They're going to be quicker. And guess what? If it's not someone that's going to come along, it could be something. And we all know AI is part of that. There's 3 pillars of hospitality within this book and concept: connection, generosity, and systemization. I told the story about generosity. I mentioned our North Star of connection. But to make that all real and tangible and something you can action after today, that's where the systemization comes in. And a lot of people find this topic to be fluffy or soft, but actually it can be systemized, which I think is actually exciting because it can be repeated and part of your usual day-to-day. We'll start with connection. So the people you serve. Hospitality starts with a genuine human connection. It's about truly seeing those customers or the people you serve and understanding their needs and anticipating their desires. Generosity is inherent to hospitality. It's about giving more than expected, not because it's required, but because you genuinely care. And what you might find about this approach is it actually makes your days more fun because you care and it's exciting and creative to be giving more than expected. And then systemization, as I mentioned. It can feel spontaneous or soft or personal, but if you actually develop a system, you can deliver this repeatedly and have exceptional experiences be part of your actual brand, be it your personal brand or your actual business brand. Why even bother? Why does hospitality matter? It matters because as a business, it can create repeat customers, referrals, and increased revenue, that hidden growth. But what's the outcome if you have internal customers or some of those other stakeholders? Well, in those cases, it can build a network, and it can have an impact, you can have influence, and of course, you build trust. Let's use an example. Let's say you're working within either a finance and a marketing department. Obviously, finance is tracking the spend, and hopefully marketing is driving it. There's some classic friction here. They have completely different languages, and they win in different ways. You've all been there, and if you're not part of marketing or finance, you certainly can relate. In this little example, marketing is heading into an annual budget ask. There's high stakes, there's a tight timeline, and there's a lot of pressure. Finance didn't wait to be asked. They didn't just wait to respond the way many finance and accounting departments do. Instead, they prepare a 1-page summary of the prior year campaign return on investment, formatted not in a CFO's language or accounting language, but in marketing's. And they send it over a couple days before the first budget meeting. They don't have an agenda. They're not asking for credit. They just recognize that marketing often comes in unprepared to these meetings, and this 1 page could make a real difference for them to have an impact when they get to that meeting. What happens next? Marketing gets their budget approved, compared to other years where they're confused at the meeting and unprepared, and therefore get the result that they were not wanting a budget that they have to go back and redo and redo and redo. Finance gets something even better though. Now marketing trusts them and sees them as an actual partner, not just a nomad or a gatekeeper. This is a simple example of unreasonable hospitality. And as you can see, it costs nothing in terms of actual cash outflow and spend. Obviously, it cost a bit of time, but in the end, it actually saved time. It changes everything. So that's a very simple example of internal customers and internal workings using unreasonable hospitality. So the next one, you're going to see the actual author. So hopefully you can hear it. And I have it on fast. So if you're multitasking right now with your hands on the keyboard, put them under your butt and look at the screen because he's talking too fast for you to pay attention and also multitask.
I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. That is perhaps my favorite quote about hospitality by Maya Angelou, and is a beautiful distillation of everything we are going to talk about today. Listen, every company is in search of its competitive advantage, its moat, the thing about their product or brand that will prevent a new competitor from coming in and stealing their business. But here's the thing. I don't care how good your product is. I don't care how strong your brand is. Eventually, and this is not my opinion, it's fact, history has proven it to be true. It's just a matter of time, but eventually someone will come around and build a better product, build a stronger brand. They might be more talented, they might have more money, they might be more creative. The only competitive advantage that exists over the long term comes through hospitality, from being generous and consistent in your investing in relationships. I got to 11 Madison Park in 2006. At the time, it was a middling brasserie. By the time I sold the restaurant in 2019, we had been named the #1 restaurant in the world. But it was not about the excellence of our food or the precision of our service or the beauty of our dining room. It was because of how we made people feel. Don't get me wrong, excellence is important. In fact, it's a prerequisite to most of what we're going to talk about today. But what I'm here to say is excellence is merely table stakes. To be the best, well, that happens through hospitality. We became #1 because we made the choice to be as unreasonable in pursuit of how we made people feel as every other restaurant on that list was purely in pursuit of the food they were serving. When I was coming up in my career, I was taught one thing pretty consistently. You hire for hospitality and you train for excellence. As in to say that people are either hospitable or they're not. Hire the ones that are and then train them how to be excellent. I could not disagree more. I believe hospitality can be taught. We all have it in us. It's just a matter of someone drawing it out of us. It can be inspired, and then it can be systemized. If you systemize a culture of hospitality, not only will it impact your guests in the most remarkable way, but it'll impact your team as well. Today, we're going to go through the process of building a customer journey advantage map. This map is a tool to help you identify all of your customer touchpoints, all of those little moments of interaction between you and the people you're serving, to understand where they occur throughout the journey, and then help you identify ways to elevate each one of those touchpoints using my principles of unreasonable hospitality. Your coach is going to be taking you through the exercise of creating this map and showing you the unbelievable impact it can have. Now, before you start, I want to identify one thing. Way too many people conflate service and hospitality as being the same thing. We're not here to talk about service. We're here to talk about hospitality. Service is the thing you do. Hospitality is how you make people feel in my world. Service is getting the right plate of food to the right person within the right amount of time. Hospitality is the extent to which you form a genuine connection with the people you're delivering that plate to. Back in the day, when I was interviewing people, I always used to ask one of the same questions to everyone. What is the difference between service and hospitality? The best answer I ever got came from a woman who, unfortunately, I did not hire. She said, service is black and white. Hospitality is color. Creating this customer journey advantage map will give you the tools to move your organization from black and white to color, but gosh, all the way to technicolor. Listen, when you create a culture of hospitality, everything about your business improves. Finding and retaining great talent, turning customers into raving fans, or increasing your profitability. One of the central ideas of this book is it does not matter what you do for a living, you can make the choice to be in the hospitality industry, simply through deciding to care a little bit more and try a little bit harder. I was in the playground with my daughter Frankie not too long ago, and a woman came up to me and she asked if I was Will Guidara, and indeed I was. And she told me that she worked for one of the biggest hospital networks in New York City, and went on to share that their entire nurse program started to use unreasonable hospitality as their training program 6 months earlier. And in that time, the patient satisfaction score went from 2.6 out of 5 to 4.5 out of 5. A beautiful example that these ideas, well, they don't just work, but they work in any industry. If you are in the business of serving people, if you are in the business of providing comfort, bringing joy, making people happy in any way, shape, or form, I guarantee you the things you are about to learn will be transformative. And what you end up with at the end of this will be nothing short of extraordinary. Okay, now you're going to go through with your coach our first activity. I want you to name specific examples of what service looks like in your industry, and then specific examples of what hospitality looks like in your industry.
All right. So as he discussed, there's a difference between service and hospitality. Many of you, like me, are probably not loving the language and words because we're not in the restaurant or hospitality industry. But play along and look at the deeper concepts because, as mentioned, this applies whether you're at a table serving a customer or, for many of you, serving customers in business to business, and for others, right internally within departments and organizations. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. We will address them throughout this course. And also at the end, we'll open it up for real discussion and your video and your voice as well. All right, here's another example. If you're going to a car dealership, we've all had to buy a car unless we assign that to our spouse, which I do. Service, having the car ready to go when the customer arrives. Hospitality would be marking the moment for the customer and celebrating it with them. Another example, we all have financial advisors. Service would be getting the best return on your money and sending the documents when they're needed. Hospitality would be being there for the moments of anxiety and helping them prepare for the things in life they may not be thinking about yet. A hotel, cleaning a room regularly, that's service. Leaving tubes of toothpaste because you noticed that the toothpaste was out, that would be hospitality. You can see that these are little things. They're not huge, they're not overly time consuming, and they're certainly not overly cash flow and expensive, but they could make a big difference. You'll remember them, you'll feel seen and heard. That's what it means with the experience and how you feel. So first you need to identify the touch points. In the video, he showed you a map like this. So really you just take your customer journey and you literally map it out. Start by just listing the steps. Once you have the steps listed, start to think about where they would go on this type of map. What is a positive step? So if you go to a restaurant, obviously it's positive when the food's served, when the dessert's served, when the tea's served. What is overlooked? It has to happen, but it doesn't really get noticed. That would go in the middle part. And then there's the negative. The most obvious negative when you're going out to dinner, when you get the check, right? There could be others as well, asking about diet and allergies. That's not necessarily fun. It's not a great moment, but it needs to be done. So think about all the steps involved with each of the customers that you interact with, list them, and then map them. That's the first step of creating a system. Here's an example. If you were a car dealership, the customer walks into the front door or onto the lot, they look at cars, they ask for a test drive, they drive off the lot, maybe they open the glove box for the first time, maybe they get their first oil change, maybe they change a flat tire. A marketing agency, there's a discovery call. What is the challenge and problem that needs to be solved? There's the follow-up emails back and forth. You figure out how you're going to add value, you provide that proposal. You sign the contract, you deliver the collateral, maybe you launch a website, and you send an invoice. Look at the customers in your life and your business and your role and start listing just like that. You'll know them, of course. You probably even have an SOP, a standard operating procedure that already lists it anyways. Go grab that and use that for the first step. Then you're going to elevate your touch points.
Okay, now that you've isolated every single one of those touch points, now the fun part starts. Now it's time to elevate them. This is where strategy comes in. No one can be better than everyone at everything, so choose your moves. Pick the things that you want to focus on and be best in class at them. Get creative and elevate as many of them as possible. Look for the positive ones. Make them a little bit more positive. Find the negative ones. Make them great. And take the overlooked ones and, well, make them noticeable. Here's the thing. As you go through this, do me a favor. Don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah, if you want to be the best, take what you do seriously, but we all need to stop taking ourselves so seriously. Way too often, in pursuit of crafting the perfect brand, we let that brand tell us that we are not allowed to do the kinds of things that will make our key stakeholders happy. Let your hair down a little bit. Do the things that are fun that will bring people joy, and I guarantee you, that will bring you joy as well. Now, you're going to work with your coach to brainstorm specific and actionable ideas on how to elevate these touch points. And you're going to do it into 3 groups: low-hanging fruit, middle of the road, and audacious. Low-hanging fruit, what I mean when I say that, just easy things. They might be things you're already doing that you want to make sure you start doing all the time. Things that don't require much resource or much time to start bringing to life. Audacious, these are the big ones, right? They might even be completely unrealistic. They might require unlimited resource and incredible amounts of time to bring to life. And then the middle of the road, well, the idea is that falls somewhere in between those two. The reason that you need to brainstorm in each of these 3 categories. Well, low-hanging fruit, anytime you want to start building new culture, you need to also start building momentum. These ideas are so that you can start to put some points on the board as quickly as possible. Audacious, well, because even though a lot of these ideas you're never going to do, you need to open your mind to what's possible. A, because it will make the ideas that fall into the other 2 categories that much better. And B, because sometimes when you think about a big, crazy, audacious idea, there might be an amazing idea just short of that that could be extraordinarily impactful. And then the middle of the road ideas, well, those will be your workhorses. That's where you're going to really start to make some impact.
All right. Before we get into the next example, Nikki, do we have any questions?
Yeah, there's a really great question that just came in, and I was kind of thinking it myself. If I'm already struggling with the basics and trying to get everything else done, is this really worth it?
That's a great question. And so I would argue that it is. And actually, this is good timing. It's like we planned it, but we didn't. He just said about that mindset is part of it, right? If you take a minute and pause and you actually start thinking about the low hanging fruit and give yourself credit, or maybe your employee or whomever credit for that low hanging fruit, that thing that they're already doing in the spirit of hospitality that nobody is systemizing or recognizing, that's going to go a long ways. And it's going to also encourage and empower people to keep doing it, because they might be doing it and start to get resentful and start to feel busy. And then all of a sudden they're like, that's the thing, I'll quit because Jamie never even noticed I do it. So why do I bother? Right. Mm-hmm. So that mindset shift of looking at the low hanging fruit and acknowledging it and empowering and systemizing it is going to ensure that it keeps getting repeated and that people don't get into that busy disease and start dropping things. And then turns out they dropped the low hanging fruit hospitality item that's actually making a difference and nobody actually recognized it.
Right.
And then in regards to the audacious or the middle of the road, stepping back and actually thinking about who your customer is probably going to make you better at all parts of the job, not just what we're talking about here and the experience in hospitality. So if we think about like some of the most simple functions in a business that every function has to have, is let's talk about like receivables. So obviously receivables are directly talking to a customer. But if you're in some of the big organizations in town, that AR team is busy, right? And they start looking at the customer, not as a customer, but like an item on their to-do list or an email that has to be sent. And if you step back and let that receivables clerk understand where hospitality comes in and what an impact they can make, first of all, they're going to understand their job better and how important what they're doing is. And second of all, they hopefully are going to enjoy it more and feel empowered to actually get out of the standard operating procedures and the check, and start thinking about the person on the other side of that as more than just an email that has to be sent. And third of all, this is your customer. So dealing with a customer amazingly in the sales process and then delivering insanely quality product, and then having an AR person that's just, annoying and bitchy, there's a big alignment there. There's a big problem. So you're actually solving a real problem too. And less intuitive is maybe the payable side, right? But at the end of the day, like if you're on the payable side and you're dealing with vendors and you don't have that same hospitality mindset, what does that do when it comes time to negotiate a better price or a scope change or a payment that needs to be late? Every stakeholder we deal with is a customer in regards to this hospitality. And if we step back and look at this, a lot of times it's going to make us more efficient and more effective and enjoy our job or empower us to do the things we're already actually doing. So I think it's true. Many of us are in jobs where we get into the disease of busy, and this seems like something you can cut off, but it's actually worth the effort. I'll tell one more quick story on this. Back many years ago now, like probably 10 or 12 years ago when I was in a big four position, I often got put on projects that were total disasters. But what was interesting is we barely delivered good work in some cases. By the time I got there, this was already the problem. But we were barely delivering good work. We were absolutely not hitting budget or scope at all. And yet, by having a hospitality mindset, every single one of those customers has since bought from me and has trusted me and would speak highly of the experience. But on paper, it was actually a terrible experience. Like, yes, we recovered, and in the end, we delivered what was sold and met the deliverables. But we didn't do it on budget. We didn't do it on time, and there was a whole bunch of issues by the time we started having a hospitality mindset. And yet, they would all reflect back and say it was a good project. But by definition, they were not good projects. They were not.
Interesting.
There was no quality. I mean, we recovered, but there was a lack of quality and major issues and real expense of both time and money incurred. And yet they would look at it with fondness because we turned it around with hospitality. So if you lack hospitality and you just do good work, you will get forgotten.
Yeah.
And in tomorrow's world, you'll just be replaced with
Right.
AI or something else. All right. Any other questions, or should we go back and come back to them?
We'll come back to the next one.
Okay. I will share my screen again. If anyone has questions, reminder, just send them to Nikki. We can address them throughout. And then at the end, we'll have a bit of a conversation as well. Okay. So another example, luxury online shopping. Since it's luxury, it's not the 3 a.m. shopping that all of us do. This is luxury shopping. So you find it at 3 a.m. and then you come back and buy it later, right? So a negative experience would be you finally are taking the leap and buying that $400 dress, and oh my God, it's out of stock. So obviously you're not happy as a customer. The low-hanging fruit would be that you get to sign up for an email notification, and when the item is back in stock, you find out about it and you can transact then. The middle of the road example would be getting exclusive access to the next new arrivals drop. So you get a perk for your inconvenience of them being out of stock. And then maybe an audacious example would be a personalized email with other similar options. So I was going to buy the red dress. They send me an email with my size and dresses that are of a similar cut or a similar style. Taking a positive part of the customer journey, I'm getting the actual package. A low-hanging fruit might be that printed note that feels a bit personal, but you know it's stock printed. Still nice to get, right? And most of our luxury online shopping would include that as well. Middle of the road might be an elevated packaging that makes the opening a true experience. I mean, there are millionaires on YouTube that all they do is open packages. So obviously this matters to someone because people are watching it on YouTube, let alone experiencing it, right? And then that audacious would be a white glove delivery, a personal delivery with some kind of confetti popper. How exciting would that be? An overlooked. So this is that overlooked opportunity, is that confirmation email. I bought the dress. Now I have a confirmation email that it's on its way. Here's how long it's going to take. The low-hanging fruit, that it's a more personalized email, not just a receipt with the time that I'm expected to get the dress. The middle of the road example would be a video from the CEO or founder that thanked me for taking the time to place an order. And maybe something audacious would be a $50 gift certificate for a local eatery where I live and work as a thank you. So those are some examples for a luxury online shopping. Let's look at a CPA firm. This is the tax firm, so not one I've ever owned, but we all know what that is because we have to drop off our taxes, right? Maybe the positive is that you actually get your taxes done. You get the year-end package. So low-hanging fruit, you have an email, A clear summary, not just the file dumped in your lap. Middle of the road might be a one-pager that's plain language that actually highlights it before we get into the technical detail, of which even those of us that took the time to get a CPA don't really understand or want to read, right? And then there's audacious, that there's a 10-minute call, even though I'm maybe just a simple tax return that costs $500 a year. I get that 10-minute call. They walk me through what actually matters so I can think about it for next year and I understand what I'm submitting. A negative part would be if the client missed the deadline. So I'm the client, I missed the deadline. And from my tax friends, I understand that a lot of clients miss a lot of deadlines. The low-hanging fruit would be that I get a reminder as the client that doesn't feel like a chase. It feels like a true reminder. Middle of the road might be a templated, here's what we still need and here's why it matters, so that I start to understand the impact of me missing the deadline and I can prioritize and get it into perspective. And audacious might be a proactively flagging the downside risk before they even ask, so that I understand, because maybe that risk is something I'm even willing to take. Oh, I missed the deadline. Oh, here's the risk. Well, it turns out I have way more important things to do and I'm willing to accept that. Overlooked, that invoice. That's always a B2B, and even as we talked about with restaurants, a B2C moment. Low-hanging fruit, context on what was delivered before the number. So I don't just get that $500 bill, or in many of our cases, our tax bills might be a bit more than that, but I don't just get that $500 bill. I understand what I received for $500. A middle of the road might be a brief, here's what's coming next. Here's what matters for you next year, or in our relationship, or in the journey of tax returns, etc. And audacious could be a handwritten thank you note, which obviously could be something that any firm or any business could do. So you're going to take the negative experiences, you're going to think about what's a low-hanging fruit, oftentimes something everybody is considering or doing, but nobody's empowering and recognizing. The middle of the road, which is truly where you can invest and anticipate making part of the system. And then the audacious. If money and time was no object, what could I do that would be crazy? And you do it for the positive experiences too. And then, of course, you do it for those overlooked experiences. Reoccurring moments. You're going to look at what happens through the customer journey, and you're going to systemize the hospitality. You're already seeing it, I can tell. This is something that can be done. It's really quick and simple steps. What's the standard operating procedure or the customer journey? All the things that happen. Which ones are positive? Which ones are negative? Which ones are overlooked? What are the possibilities in terms of low-hanging fruit, middle of the road, and audacious? From there, you systemize. Simple stuff. This is not rocket science, but most of us haven't taken the time to look at it from this.
I'm so excited to hear about all the ideas that have come out of these conversations. And your coach is going to spend some time giving you pretty clear instruction on how to maintain momentum in bringing these ideas to life. But I just want to be clear that you really should maintain momentum and bring them to life, because in Unreasonable Hospitality, as a strategy, it is a win, win, win. Okay, it's a win for your customers, because, my gosh, we are in a cultural season where, let's just name it, we're not accustomed to people going above and beyond for us all that often anymore. But man, when it happens, it feels freaking good. It's also a win for your bottom line. I mean, listen, we spent money on this stuff, although to be clear, it's not about how much you spend on these gestures, it's about how thoughtful they are. But we did spend money. Yet every dollar I ever spent on Unreasonable Hospitality was far more impactful than any dollar I ever spent on traditional marketing. Because when you give people stories like this to tell, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to tell them over and over and over again. And one day you will wake up with legions of ambassadors out there doing your marketing on your behalf far better than you could ever do it yourself. But the third win, it was amazing for our team, because I have yet to encounter a feeling more energizing than the one you have when you see the look on someone else's face when they receive a gift you are responsible for giving. When you implement these ideas, you are giving your entire team the gift of being able to turn around and give so many people so many gifts. And I can't think of very many things cooler than that. So your coach is going to work with you to put together a clear plan to how to bring all of this to life and implement all the amazing things you just come up with.
All right, Nikki, do we have any additional questions?
Yeah, there's a couple here now. Where does quality and timely delivery of good work fit in this? And does it count as part of this?
Awesome question. So going back to the story I said about those projects where I saved, in some ways, it's interesting because obviously we need to provide what we sold, what's expected, and that quality and that timeliness. So that would be considered table stakes. What's interesting about that story that I told is that counter to when you have an issue there, this can actually make up for that and make the overall experience one that's considered with fondness and positivity. Now,
Right.
granted, in the story I told, we did recover and deliver what was sold. Not timely and not on budget, but we did deliver it at a reasonable quality in the end, right? So
Mhm.
a much better situation would be like if we think about the restaurant, you go in and it is great service and it is great food and it is timely. And in addition, you experience this hospitality. So that's where you expect the day to day and the overall
Right.
systemized experience to be. But the example I gave shows how offsetting the two can actually make a big difference as well. Now, to be more direct to the question, here's the thing though, and it's not what most people want to hear. And that is that if you only deliver quality and timeliness, that isn't really enough anymore, right? Because then, like, if you're delivering me timely quality and you're $100 an hour, and meanwhile, I could go and get it for $90 an hour, I'm going to consider it, right? Because
Mhm.
nothing about what you're providing is hospitality. I have no connection to you. I have no loyalty to you. Sure, you keep delivering great work at $100 an hour, but I would be irresponsible not to look at the $90 an hour, wouldn't I? So you become very replaceable very quickly if you're
Right.
providing quality and timeliness alone, because everybody should be. And that doesn't entice influence, it doesn't entice trust, it doesn't give a feeling. It's just a transaction. And all
Right.
transactions can be replaced with another transaction. And that in turn happens within the business, right? Like if you are owning a relationship with someone in operations and all you do is provide them what they ask for on time, well, pretty quick, that new shiny person that comes in could be their go to because that person provides a feeling and an experience. So, why would they go to you when they get all of what you deliver plus
Plus.
with the other? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Do you have another?
Yeah, he just briefly touched in the last video on budget and having a budget for doing these, I'm assuming the audacious ones. But what if you don't get a budget for this kind of a thing?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So if we go back to even like, I know we don't have receivables or payables clerks on this call because we're a leadership team, but we all have somebody that does receivables and payables in every business, period. So if I look at the receivables payables clerk example, they're probably not getting a budget, let's be honest, right?
Right.
They're almost certainly not getting a budget. So maybe their audacious is, at a different level, that they took the time to make a phone call, that they took the time to look them up at LinkedIn and then made a comment about the last post that, like they're collecting from you, Nikki. They look you
Right.
up, they realize you're moving into an RV, they make a comment about the RV. Like these are simple things that, as you can appreciate, when was the last time a collections clerk called you and made a comment about something that you had on Facebook or LinkedIn? Like almost never. So that would be hospitality. It would be. It would make a big, big difference. And did it cost some time? Yes, it cost some time. There's nothing on this list that's not going to cost anything.
Right.
Everything is going to cost some level of time or actual cash. But it doesn't have to be blow your brains, and it can be within the power of an 8 hour low level person, right? It can be within
Yeah.
their scope that they can spare what it takes. Take something, so we can't lie and pretend it doesn't take anything. But it
Yeah.
can make a big difference because if I'm calling you and collecting from you, Nikki, and take the time to say something like that, chances are you're going to pay me quicker than Frank, who calls you 10 minutes later in the typical way. And
Right.
if you pay me quicker, how much time do I save in the long run not having to friggin' email or call you again? A
Right.
lot more than it took for me to take that little step, right? And maybe that's a silly example, but it's, I think, a real example actually of hospitality. Any
Yeah,
other?
it doesn't require money, right?
No, it
Yeah.
requires something, either
Yeah.
money or time, but in the long run, it should save. And then the example he gave in the video, and I'm in no way, this is not in any way an argument against marketing, but what he's saying is like a marketing dollar on a Google ad versus a dollar on
Mhm.
hospitality, which is going to have the bigger ROI? The person telling that story and having those referrals, or being a repeat customer, or the person that sees you while they're reading the latest news article and your ad pops up, right? So it's also a shift of mindset and where your dollars are spending.
Makes
Any
sense.
other questions?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, just 1 second. I'll share again. All right. So you need to create your unreasonable hospitality rules. When X happens, Y happens. So that in that silly example, it's the third time we have to connect with Nikki to collect our $100. Maybe the rule is as simple as on the third time, what happens? It's a call with some kind of personalized comment or note or conversation. Maybe it's as simple as that. Again, maybe not the best example, but it's easy and simple. Let's use a hotel example. Someone checks in after 11 p.m., so a late check in. They're ready to hit the bed. They don't want all this nonsense at the desk. Maybe you change things, and when it's after 11, when Y happens, X happens, or I guess it's X then Y, you just have the key ready and you deal with the paperwork the next day. It's possible, right? And that's a 20-minute save when you're already so tired and ready to hit the bed. So after 11, you just get the key and the opportunity to do the admin the next day. Maybe another example, a couple's on their honeymoon and you deliver chocolate covered strawberries to their room. And you know they're on the honeymoon and the strawberries are there instead of that extra cell. Or a child gets hurt in your lobby or wherever, and you've got a stash of teddy bears and band-aids, and you bring out that teddy bear and band-aid. Quickly, they stop crying, and it's a better experience for everyone in that lobby, isn't it? Worth the money of what's a teddy bear these days. These aren't going to be expensive ones, are they? If you're interested in doing more exercises, he just recently came out with a new book. I think it's available, and if not, it's coming out right away. It's called The Field Guide. So the first book to read would be The Unreasonable Hospitality. It's a reasonably good book. You can listen to it at 1.5 or 1.7. He's a good storyteller. It is very restaurant based. So that might frustrate you. It certainly frustrated me. But at the same time, we all eat in restaurants, so it's relatable. So Unreasonable Hospitality is available for listen or purchase. Obviously, you're not buying it through me. That's just something you can do as homework. But in addition, he has come out, and that's the why. So that's the why bother? Why does this matter? How does it have influence and impact and be a hidden growth strategy? And then to get into the more tactical and the how, he has a new one called the Field Guide. I don't have that one, but basically it's the certification that I did and put into a book. So those are some extra resources that you can look at. We are going to wrap up and do some questions and answers for the last 15 minutes. Before we do that, please do stay in touch with us. We are excited to be back doing Wingman webinars, and we're going to be doing them on the first Wednesday of the month in September and October and November for sure. We'll decide December. Since it's the first Wednesday, we probably will do December because it's not truly Christmas season yet, but to be determined. And we are skipping July and August because of Stampede and all the vacations and the golf and the sunshine that you guys are going to be doing instead. But keep in touch. And if you're not already on our newsletter, you should be after signing up today. And we talk about connection in those newsletters. And again, our webinars are based on connection, AI, and leadership. And so today's was a connection one. Our last one was a leadership one. The one before was AI. So who knows what we'll be doing on September. We'll figure it out soon. Okay, Nikki, you can open it up for everybody to talk out loud and to see your face. Hopefully we have no spammers or I have some post-traumatic stress disorder from once being hacked in a webinar. So that's why we lock it down more than what you're probably used to with other businesses. So if you want to unlock them, and in the meantime, I think you have other questions, do you?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask one while I unlock everybody, but
Okay.
it popped into my head, so it's probably percolating in other people's. What if you can't think of an idea? Like, I know when you map out this journey, what if you can't come up with an idea?
Yeah, and that's a good point because obviously some of us aren't creative by nature.
Right.
So it can be very difficult. So that's where the low-hanging fruit is a good example. So thinking about what am I actually doing that isn't in that standard operating procedure or wasn't told to me when I received the job or what have you, right? So starting to get credit and recognizing what's already happening. And then if you're a leader and you're recognizing what other people are doing, empowering them and recognizing them for doing it, that's going to start getting the juices flowing. Okay. So that's definitely the starting point. Then I would jump to the audacious, like just be absolutely stupid, where budget's no question and time's no question. You all can think of things that are absolutely nuts for sure that clearly you wouldn't have time or money to do. So start thinking there. And then between the two, you'll find that your creativity starts flowing and you start to think about simple and easy things. Of course, the other thing to think about is what and go industry wide, right? Don't just think about it within the scope of the department or industry that you're in, but think about like when have I wanted to work with someone again, and kind of outline that journey, and then see if you can steal any of those ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even if you were want to work with someone again and that's like a marketing and finance department, for example, and now you're running a marketing shop, think about what it was that happened in those interactions that made you actually want to work with that particular controller or that particular ops manager, right? And obviously there are times when these examples won't come firsthand because you just want to work with someone because you like them, which is a little different than hospitality. But oftentimes when it's not like, maybe you haven't built a true long-term relationship, but you still keep coming back. Like, why do you get the coffee where you get the coffee? Why do you go to the restaurant that you've got booked for Sunday for Father's Day, right? Why do you always buy your shoes at the same place? Like, think about all the things you do as reoccurring and see if there's something you can steal. And the funny thing is that we can steal things from other industries much more than we often realize. If that
Right.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we having troubles unlocking them?
I think it's unlocked.
Oh, because I don't see them. Oh, they just don't have their videos on. That's
Yeah.
why. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to turn their videos on and ask a question live, please feel free. Nikki, do we have any others that came in earlier?
Nope. That's it.
Okay. So, a couple other things to mention when it comes to connection and unreasonable hospitality is if we go back. Oh, Craig says the cameras are still locked.
Oh, one moment.
Okay, just 1 second. We'll try and figure this out. Yes. Okay, Nikki will figure that out. Sorry. So going back, so the unreasonable hospitality, when we're thinking about
There
how
he
we
is.
can use this, the other thing to think about is that it honestly will give you the opportunity to actually enjoy your life better, right? So he mentioned it in the video that one of the big reasons for it is that how it affected the team. So like if everybody's coming to work knowing that they're empowered and have the opportunity to exceed expectations, how does that change your day-to-day experience with your job and the people around you, right? So there's a real opportunity there as well. And I think that even stepping back on a hard day and asking yourself, where could I deliver hospitality? It'll change the way that your day is going. There's a lot of actual psychological studies about how,
Mhm.
even at the youngest age, they've done studies where generosity and giving has more of an impact on your happiness and your mindset than receiving, right? So taking a minute to think about how could I be hospitable today could change the way the day actually happens.
Yeah, it's a win-win for sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Any other questions? They're off video, but can they also talk? Are you guys able to talk? Go ahead, Curtis. You
Yeah,
went off.
you're
Go
able to
ahead.
talk. You just have to click it off.
Pardon me?
You just have to click your audio.
Perfect. Do you have a question or
I
comment
do
or
not.
thought?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, awesome. Anyone else questions or thoughts? Has anyone actually done this before and wants to share an experience?
Just a quick thought on this. I love it. I've worked in franchise chains where this is kind of built from the top down. Um, Little things, never the audacity because it is, franchise retail. But if you're looking at doing stuff like this as a marketing person, if your marketing team is familiar with the metrics of acquisition versus retention, or if you come to them with that type of information, that quantifiable, the idea of spending $5 on a teddy bear and have a box of them in the back, or a little gift card or a handwritten note, the retention and the lifetime value. Jamie, you mentioned versus a Google ad. I mean, you're spending a buck 50 for a click versus retaining those clients. Any marketer worth their salt, or anyone who wants to talk to a marketer and say acquisition versus retention, here's what we want to do, it should be an easy sell. It to be able to do those touch points, put them in the marketing budget, do the difference between acquisition and retention, and it should become a part, it should be a line item in the budget.
Yeah, and for those of you that are less familiar with like marketing metrics, the idea is that for every new client that you acquire, like just think about, a standard business. First, maybe you paid for that Google ad. Then you have to have that fancy website in the form. Then maybe you have a lead generating PDF, and all this stuff costs money as you're going through the funnel. Then you finally get a chance to talk to them, and that's usually an expensive discussion. And so that conversation happens. Then the follow-up conversations, then the proposals, all of that costs time and money. And then finally, you get a brand new customer. And, how much did you spend to acquire that customer? In the meantime, if you had another customer that you're already serving and you just hold them that much longer as a customer, or they buy something new from you, that instead of all of those steps ahead of time at the top of the funnel, you're earning that just by delivering hospitality and quality and value. And so you have no choice. You're contractually obligated to provide the quality and the timeliness. So if you just add that little hospitality and then compare that to what it costs to acquire a client, there's a huge difference. And generally speaking, the ROI is actually higher in retention and or upselling a current client than a new one too, because no matter how great your funnel and marketing and sales is, for every new client, some of them aren't going to be the right client either. But and compare that to the client you already have that's proven to be the right client.
It can be 10 times more expensive to acquire than to retain.
Yeah.
So if your
And
customer
then you
acquisition
might not
cost
even
is,
keep that client at all, and it
yeah,
might be the wrong client.
yeah.
Exactly.
If it costs you $300 to win a client, what's $20 to keep them? You already spent the $300. They're already in your business. $20 to keep them and turn them into an advocate, turn them into someone who's referring you and talking and bragging. I mean, that compounds pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the teddy bear example too, because if it's your kid crying and me and Margaret are trying to have a girls' weekend, the quicker that kid's quiet, the better I am experiencing life too. So that one's especially a fun example, right?
Well, and it creates that awe moment. Like even the other people for a second, they're like, oh, look how sweet they were to that boy. It's not my child, but oh, look how sweet that was.
Exactly. So there's like ripple effects of that
Mhm.
marketing or that and that hospitality. And that may not be the case on everything, like the receivables clerk chatting to the person that might not have the ripple effect, but a lot of examples can have that ripple effect. Not to mention the referrals and the talking and all that as well. Other comments, shares, or questions? All right, we're 4 minutes to time, and the only last thing I would say to you is Jan has a wait list for our lunch next week. So if you have not said yes, at least tell her so that you're on that wait list. Given it's the week before Stampede and there's grad and there's summer and there's life happening, I wouldn't be surprised if the wait list actually does get a chance to attend. So if you were planning to reply to Jan's invite for the lunch that her and I are hosting, do it now because the wait list is literally like in order. If you didn't get that email or you weren't looking for the email, then send a note to Nikki and I or to Jan directly if you have a relationship with her. So that is the 24th, right, Nikki? That's Wednesday, I think, right? 24th is Wednesday.
Yep.
And we're talking fractional. And by and large, most of the attendees are people who are familiar with fractional. So it's not going to be a definition lunch. It's going to be a spicy, what does fractional really mean in modern leadership lunch? That's where we're leaning, given the audience.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll be a fun experience. And then besides that, as I mentioned, Wingman Webinars comes back on the first Wednesday of September. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be. If you have asks or suggestions, please do send. And then we are going to have a W launch party probably in September. We're still working that out as well. So there is no shortage of things happening always. And please do open the newsletters so that you keep in touch with us and know what's happening. Anyone have any final comments or questions before we wrap?
Great seminar, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
This was awesome.
Great. Have a great
Mm,
day.
like-
And you'll get the deck and you'll get the video. So watch for that too. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good summer.
Yes, you too.